everyone. Welcome back to Lash Boss Radio. I'm Shelby, your host, and today I'm joined by Erin Taylor of Monarch Lash Co. And we're going to be talking about her recent announcement of a new position at PLA that she just took. We're going to talk about retention. She's also going to be speaking at Lash Boss Summit, so we'll talk about that as well, and basically just jump right into Erin's story. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Same. Well, it's your first time on Lash Boss Radio, and usually I like to kind of just go through somebody's timeline of their career. Can you give us like a 1-minute synopsis of what your lash career has looked like so far? Because I really want to talk about this new position that you just took too.
Wow, in 1 minute. Okay. How fast can I talk? So I've been in the lash industry for what feels like a trillion years. I originally thought that I would be in the body modification world, and then I got into caregiving with the mentally disabled community. I was considering going back to college to study some sort of social science or human design, and my mom gifted me a set of lash extensions. And from that point on, I enrolled in beauty school. I went independent right away after beauty school. I knew that I wanted to do lashes exclusively. I am not. I skincare. It is a shame that I have a license with skincare. I am not good at skincare at all. But I just knew that I wanted to focus on lashes. So I went independent immediately. I rented my first studio. I built a full clientele, and then I ended up moving cities and rebuilt my clientele essentially in a new city. And from that point on, I worked on creating an online course program. I started teaching in person. I was working full time as a lash artist. I was retailing product. I built a studio from the ground up and ran a creative studio for a few years, and that just recently closed. I have been doing so much. I'm a co-host on a podcast. I've been speaking at events, and I have done pretty much everything in the industry except for open my own product line.
That's amazing.
It's been a wild ride, and now I just recently joined PLA as their global compliance and product development specialist, which is just the best thing in the entire world, and I'm so excited about it. And I have my online course academy.
Tell me about accepting a position with PLA. What was that like for you, and how did that come about exactly?
So, first of all, I feel like I've been saying it's like a miracle, and I know that that sounds like maybe cliche, but truly, this position is everything that I could have even dreamed about where my career would take me in the lash industry. Like, I look back on the really, really long nights and how hard of work I was putting in for so many years. And I couldn't really figure out like where it was going to take me eventually, but I knew that that hard work was eventually going to take me exactly where I wanted to go in the industry. And Michelle called me and was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I was like, yes. I couldn't have said yes fast enough. Yeah, I don't really know how else to answer that. It's just like a miracle. I just thank God every single day for that position. I'm still kind of like lost for words about it because it's just everything that I could have dreamed about.
I think a lot of times in the beauty industry, we hear a lot of messaging about working for yourself and how that's the best decision that you can make. And so how has that been for you, having worked for yourself and having that experience and doing that for so long, and then starting to work for another company?
It's been an adjustment for sure. But I think that it's exactly what I wanted to be doing. And it's exactly where I wanted to go with my time and my contribution to the lash industry. You know, PLA is a company that I can put my heart and soul behind because the integrity of the company aligns with mine so much that it felt like a natural and organic evolution of where my career ended up taking me. So it's very hard to compare the two. I think that certain personalities do work better working for themselves, and I think that certain personalities do well working for others. And I don't think that there's a right or wrong in this industry. I think sometimes working for a brand or being a brand ambassador or, in any way collabing or partnering with a brand nowadays can sometimes be villainized. And I think that like there's no right or wrong either way. I think that both can be extremely valuable and powerful. And yeah, I don't think that either one is right or wrong. It just depends on where life takes you, and sometimes life takes you in different directions than where you originally thought that you would go.
Yeah, I think too, it's cool to see, there's so many huge players in our industry, partnering up with other brands, and I think it's spreading a really good message that success, can look like many different things in our industry, and it doesn't
Yeah.
you can also be successful doing something like this versus you have to have, your name on the door, and I think that's kind of like a liberating message and something that a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, I don't know, I'm wondering if our industry is kind of maturing a little bit, maybe, like, growing up a little bit more nowadays versus, like, back in the day. I mean, when I first got into the industry, it was all, like, self-empowerment. I remember the number 1 hashtag that was being used was self-made. And, like, in our industry, I saw self-made so often as a hashtag, and that's just, like, a random observation, but I feel like that's such a testament to the then version of our industry to the now version of our industry where collaboration, I think that one of the highest, hashtags that I see now is community over competition, and that being I haven't seen self-made in the lash industry as a hashtag for probably years at this point. It is so far gone that I think that's such a testament to the evolution of our industry and kind of the morale and the values that have evolved of
Yeah.
our industry. And so, yeah, back in the day, what you said, having your name on the door really was the it thing to boast about. And like, it was really, I don't want to. I don't know how else to say that other than maybe like a boost of your ego a little bit to, be very like, I did this. This is for me, like I can be proud of this, which you can be proud of that. I'm very proud of doing what I've done for so many years and being independent for so many years. It's freaking hard to do that and be successful at it and last past, 5-year mark. It's incredibly, incredibly hard. And I think anybody that's been able to, have their own business and be independent past at any point past 1 year, especially the statistic is past 1 year that a lot of beauty businesses end up closing their doors when they're independent. And I think that everybody should be proud of that, but there's no shame in partnering with a company or aligning with somebody or working for someone else at any point, whether that's as an independent artist and you go work in a salon and you're still taking clients, or whether you become a BA, whether you end up working for a lash brand, whatever that ends up looking like. I think that it's just very different
Mhm.
nowadays in our industry.
I think too, a lot of people in the world think more about the quality of their life and their time way more than we used to. Like pre-COVID, I think that really kind of um, showed us all something. And so when you are a business owner and you are sometimes your quality of life can take a hit a little bit because you are more stressed in some cases, either just your time is really strapped or financially it's just really hard. And so I think partnering with a company that aligns with you, like you were just describing, can actually add so much value to your life and in a lot of cases make the same, if not more, um, if it's about the money.
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask you about that. Like, in your experience with what you've seen and maybe even in your, story, do you feel like age is a factor in that because a lot of people get into the beauty industry at a very young age, whether it's right out of high school or like early 20s. And then as they mature and get a little bit older, then that stability, 401k, health benefits, all of that starts to weigh a little bit heavier. And it's incredibly hard to do that as a self-employed person. Do you
Yeah,
think that age has anything to do with the reason that people evolve into working for brands?
I think so. I think for sure, like your brain develops a little bit more over time and you start realizing just what really matters to you. I think sometimes even becoming a parent can shift things for some people. I know that did for me. It makes you kind of, as you get older, I think, rethink your choices for like what they're going to do long term and not just the short term. I don't know. I also think a lot of us came from being in like the restaurant or the bar industry where we just made like quick money and I as you start learning more about your future and everything, I think these questions just start becoming a little bit more important to actually give more thought to and more context. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that yeah, I agree with you that the maturation of the brain, I feel like, has a big part to play in that.
For sure. Um
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your podcast. It's called the Lash Extension Podcast with Tress Larson. How long have you
Okay.
guys been doing that now?
We started that February of 2024, I believe was our first launch, like our first episode launch.
So almost a year.
Almost a year. Yeah, we're coming up on a year.
How have you guys found that? You guys are not living in the same area, but how has that been recording just virtually and everything with each other?
Surprisingly, it's actually been really easy, and at first I will say at first, there was a lot of troubleshooting and technical things to figure out and make sure that, our software was gonna be compatible for different states, and we were gonna be able to have the highest quality highest quality audio sound. That was hard to say. But it was, something that we had to make sure that our quality for our audio was going to stay consistent and actually be, as high quality as if we were sitting in person together. So choosing the right software, getting everything sorted, finding our editor, and making sure that all of our, platforms were launching seamlessly. Like there is a lot of tech behind podcasts that I think a lot of people are surprised like to learn about whenever they are like, I'm gonna, take the leap and make my own podcast. I think it sounds a lot easier than it is. Um, but it's been really, really fun actually. And originally it started because we were having like super, super deep very inquisitive, big conversations behind the scenes because we're best friends behind the scenes. And so we were like one day like we should just record this. Like this would be such a good conversation to be having and everybody can listen and everybody can get something out of this too. And so we ended up creating the podcast originally for that purpose as we were like we just need to bring these conversations to the public and just have, a larger long format conversation for education, for pulling back the curtain on anything that the lash industry needed to we thought needed to be heard, and we've just been honestly having the most fun with it. Like it's really transitioned and shifted over the last year. It's morphed into something really fun, but yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I agree about what goes into creating a podcast and all of the stuff that goes into it. But the end result is so awesome. Getting to do this is so fun. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now, and I love it too. It's really great. But I never really
Yeah.
thought about like what all goes into it until you actually start doing it. You're like, wow, it's a lot, but it is worth it.
It's a lot. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, especially if you're editing yourself.
Oh my gosh, I
Like, if you
used
choose
to.
to
Yeah.
edit your Oh, we could not.
Yeah,
It
I
takes so much time.
it does. That would hold up my, like, podcast releasing schedule because I was the bottleneck of that. I was holding it up, and because I was trying to juggle everything else. But yeah, if you can get a good editor, that takes away all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also want to ask you a little bit about your courses. You teach primarily online, and your courses are like retention, social media, mega volume, etc. You're also teaching about retention at Lash Boss Summit. It's kind of one of your main things I've seen. Can we talk a little bit about that, why you chose to kind of niche down of these specific topics in particular?
That's a good question. So originally it started because I was doing trainings in person. I started training in person because there was such a large demand for my local artists were, either filling my work or I was posting a lot on social media, just tips and tricks, my client photos, retention photos. And I was getting so much demand before I was ever educating. I literally wasn't training at all. And people were messaging me like, how can I learn this? Like, I want to take a training with you. Are you offering trainings? And I was like, no, I'm not. But okay, I can show you this. So originally my education, I don't know, career, I don't really like calling it that, but
Journey.
becoming an educator, if you will, started with just private mentorships. I literally just started mentoring people because I didn't have a curriculum. I just was like, come shadow me. Like, let me know what you want to learn and I'll teach you on the spot. And that was kind of how I started training. That kind of exploded as soon as I launched private mentorships. I was training at least once a week, sometimes twice a week for about a year. And during the process of my private mentorship trainings, it's always been a custom curriculum because it had to be. Like I said, I didn't have a built-in curriculum because it wasn't necessarily like a course where you have a built-in agenda, you have a curriculum, you have like hour by hour sort of outline for the training. So because it was a custom training where I'm mentoring based on the topics that they're wanting to learn, I created forms. So I send out a questionnaire to all of my students before they come for their training. This way I can tailor the exact curriculum and build it to that student. So we can have some sort of time management for the day and we can cover all of the topics that they are struggling with. So when I was sending these forms, I was noticing a huge trend where basically everybody was coming to me for the same 5 topics. That's one of the questions that I ask on my questionnaires is, what are the 5 top things that you want to cover in your mentorship today? And so when I was comparing the entire year, essentially, I ended up accidentally having some sort of curriculum for these trainings because everybody that was coming to me for very specific things that were all they were all identical. There was the exact same training that I was doing for an entire year. And I was like, okay, clearly there's a trend here that these people are interpreting what I'm doing in an expert position to where they want to come learn it from me. And it's the exact same topics. So I realized that I was so, you know, crunched on time because I was already training once or twice a week and I was still a full-time lash artist. So I was working 7 days a week. I didn't have time for, travel trainings as much. I did do group trainings, but it wasn't feasible for me to fit that into my schedule as often. And I realized the majority of the people that were messaging me were like, hey, I want to come train with you, but I'm in a different country or I'm in a different state. Do you do travel trainings or can you come to me? Because I can't come to you. I can't travel internationally to come take a 5-hour training with you. And I realized that there was a very large demand for the topics that I was training, but I couldn't serve people outside of a certain radius unless I were to put that curriculum online. So I ended up putting it online and people now I've been able to reach 65 countries. I haven't checked the statistic the chart in a while, but last I checked it was at 65 countries that I had reached. And I never would have been able to reach that many students, worldwide had it not been for my online academy.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's kind of how that started.
Um, can we talk about retention a little bit? I think that's always such a great topic for lash artists to hear about. Can you give us a couple of your favorite retention tips?
Mm. Yes, I can because I'm gonna be talking about it at Lash Boss Summit, and I'm just really excited about that presentation. I think it's gonna be really fun because I think the angle that I'm gonna take with it is things that people probably have never heard or even considered with retention. So it's gonna be completely unique in a lot of the, I don't wanna call them tips because 'cause they're much more than tips. It's like the science of adhesive and your microenvironments and things. So, one of the things though that I want to talk about with Lash Boss Summit and I guess give a sneak peek into now is with retention. One of the things that a lot of people really don't consider is oh gosh, this is hard to just choose one. One of the things that people don't often consider is we all know that with retention and with our adhesive, the temperature and humidity of our adhesive now is really important, right? We have our hygrometer, we track our temperature, we track our humidity percentage, but what a lot of people also don't consider is the microenvironment sitting underneath your tile. And what I mean by that is if you have a heating pad, for example, underneath a ceramic tile, it's literally heating up from underneath your adhesive. So where your environment might read one temperature, your actual adhesive is sitting on top of a completely different temperature than what your hygrometer is even reading. So if you're working under a really hot light, for example, or you do have a heating pad or you have I don't know, you have something warming that area from underneath, ceramic is notorious for having for containing and keeping heat in. So it's warming up your adhesive from underneath it. And I think a lot of people don't consider that.
Mhm.
So they're like, why is my, glue not working well for me? My hygrometer is reading perfect. My environment is at the perfect temperature. And then that's the number one question that I end up asking them is, oh, do you have a bed warmer underneath your adhesive or a lamp right above it that is heating your adhesive? And or if they're working on a ceramic tile, oftentimes the answer is yes. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I never considered that. I'm actually heating up my adhesive.
And okay, I have a question. So a couple years ago, I feel like our industry was really big on we saw a lot of courses and just posts saying 8-week retention, 6-week retention, etc. How do you speak to retention in that way? Or do you even say X week retention or do you call it something else?
No, I don't give it by weeks. I don't ever teach retention by weeks. I don't even do my fills by weeks. I
Same
do
here.
fills. Yeah, I call it a just a regular fill or an extended fill. I don't consider it by weeks. Where I think weeks is it's an easy gauge for a lot of people, and I think it's been the narrative in the lash industry for so long. It's not a Everybody has a different growth cycle. Everybody has a different speed and rate that their lashes are growing at. Everybody has a different shed cycle. Like for me personally, I cannot go longer than 2 weeks because my growth cycle is so fast. I don't know why. Like I wish all of these nutrients in my body could go to like organs or like making me lose weight but for whatever reason all the nutrients in my body go to my lashes and my hair and just make them like grow super fast. Um so because of my growth and because my sheds are so frequent, I am not a candidate for going longer than 2 weeks. That being said, I have clients that they could easily go 4 weeks because their growth is so limited and is so short. Whether they're, a more mature client and their age is playing a portion in that, whether certain medications are playing a portion in that, genetics. There's a lot of factors at play with growth cycles and what you know determines that. But no, I don't go by weeks, and I don't think that it necessarily should be. counted by weeks. I think a lot of that originated as marketing for selling adhesives, if I'm just being candid.
It's very
Because,
gimmicky. Yeah.
it looks really fancy and it looks really like sticker shock to say, this adhesive is gonna give you 8-week retention. And so I think that it originated around there when realistically every adhesive is going to give you 8-week retention when every other factor to retention is at play and is perfect. Um, Nowadays we should be, and back then we should be too, but we know more now. Retention should last the entire lifetime of that natural lash, whether and until that natural lash sheds naturally, or you physically remove the lash for grow out and replacing it. So every adhesive should give you that result of 8-week retention, if that natural lash is going to live an 8-week life cycle.
Agreed. I think we should more so be looking for indicators, right? Like when a client is coming back and we're seeing a bunch of naked adult lashes, for example, that's probably not a good sign. But if we're seeing a ton of anagen lashes that are grown out and they're now in the catagen stage, and we're seeing that those short baby extensions that we had placed 2 weeks ago are still there, that's a really good indicator that your retention is pretty dang good. I totally agree. I think it was more like very gimmicky, and it started to say to people this message of you're doing something wrong, or like it could be even better. And I'm sure like there's so many things that we could all be doing better, but I'm more so just like to look at the lash line when they come in. I'm like, these still look really amazing. Like if your clients are coming back and you can count the lashes, probably need to work on retention a little bit. But if your clients are still getting a bunch of compliments as they come in and you're popping off a ton of grown out lashes and all you're really seeing is naked baby lashes, then your retention is really great.
One of the things that I think is the ultimate determining factor whether you have good retention or not, and I ask my clients this, I tell all of my clients this, whether they are returning clients especially, they kind of should already know, but new clients that have been that start coming to me, sorry if you heard my dog. New clients that start coming to me from another lash artist that they've never maybe had that sort of education, I always make it a point to explain to them that the ultimate sign of good retention is if every single one of the extensions that sheds from your face has a natural lash attached.
Yes.
If every one of them that's shedding has a natural lash attached, then I'm not worried about it. That's natural. That's what I want to see. If lashes are falling without a natural lash attached, that's when I get concerned. So it's really up to the client to do a lot of analyzing and to understand what they're looking at and looking for. And I want them to give me that feedback at every one of their fills, at every one of after their full set. I want them to pay attention to that more than anything, because that's really good feedback for me. That is the troubleshooting that I need to know, because that's how you indicate whether you are actually getting great retention, or if there's something on my end as a lash artist that I need to be troubleshooting and working on. So kind of understanding what good retention looks like versus what it doesn't look like is just the first part of that battle.
Totally agree with you. So we just mentioned you are speaking at Summit, and you have been both years previously, but this is the first time you're actually speaking on stage. So I'm super pumped about that. Also, did you know that we're doing a lash competition at Lash Boss Summit this coming year?
Yes, I did know about it.
Yeah. So basically, the day before the conference, which is 2 days long, the day before, we're doing a live competition, and there are 6 categories. There's classic, there's angel or wet sets, there's Russian volume, mega volume, wispy sets as its own category, and then also color/creative. I'm so excited for this and think that we just need to bring back live lash competitions. We just see them online now, really.
I It is so trippy because I've been thinking about that for so long, and I'm like, "Whatever happened to those?" Like, I remember those being such a big thing before COVID hit, and I'm like, Who's gonna bring this back?" Because this was that was, like, the funnest and ultimate, I think, for the winners of those competitions, that was, like, the ultimate award, like,
Yes.
your work is being judged blindly by completely objective judges that have no idea who you are, and your work just finally gets to speak for itself. Not like macro shots on Instagram, not, through submitting a form of like who can write the best, who can chat GPT the best. Like, I really feel like this is just the ultimate, like, bragging rights that
Yeah.
somebody their work gets to speak for themselves. Like, that's just the best thing ever. I can't even begin to explain how excited I am to bring these back. I'm so glad that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel the exact same. I think it's like the ultimate compliment to your work, like for it to be sifted through and analyzed in every single like little category possible. And it means something if you win something like that. So yeah, I'm super pumped. And I think like just having a lot of different categories and not just like classic and volume is
Mhm.
pretty important too, because some people specialize in one of those categories and should be able to compete in that way too. So yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I cannot even wait to see the work of the winners and the people that don't win, like, the amount of guts that it takes to even enter yourself into a competition like that and show up and do the work, like, and allow your work to be judged, that is hard. I mean, I remember when I was first educating and doing live demos was like, I was stressed about that because I'm like, my work's being judged. And every time that I've been training now where, the student is doing a live demo and then the educator, is either standing over their shoulder and watching them work or sifting through their work after they're done. Like, it's really stressful. And so allowing yourself to let your guard down to either, win for all you know, and like taking that risk and also opening yourself up to constructive criticism, like, it's a no lose situation. You either
Yes.
could potentially win or you could be given, tips to help make your work better. And like, it's just, like, I just can't even wait. I'm so excited about it.
Same
I can't
here.
wait.
Me too. I think too,
Mhm.
just for anyone listening, like debating entering or not, please enter. Like you would be surprised how many people hold themselves back from doing something like this just because it's an unknown or something like that. Just sign up. Like it's that easy. Just sign up and just try. But yeah, I'm super
Right,
pumped.
yeah. Really, I think too, a lot of people are worried that they're gonna be judged, like, they're gonna I don't know. I feel like if I put myself into that mindset, I'm like, I would be worried that someone's gonna find out who I was and my work would be like, like, if my work sucked, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna know that my work sucked," or something like that, and I would intentionally, like, hold myself back from putting myself out there to do that, and I just want to encourage everybody that, like, the judges that will be judging that contest are not judging you. They're only there to make your work better, make the industry better, and there's no lose that you can have in doing this. You won't be judged.
Yeah, and
Even
I'd
I don't know how.
imagine like if you entered and like didn't win on one year and then you did it again the next year and you came back and you were like I'm ready and then you won, that would be such a cool outcome, I think too. I agree. There's no losing because you're finding out exactly what you need to be working on and that benefits your career in general, not just for bragging rights and awards sake. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're bringing this back. So do you know how the setting of that's gonna work yet?
Well, so yes. So we're doing two categories going at a time, and then the judges won't be allowed to see the competitors or anything. And then the models will all get judged whenever the competitors are out of the room and are just being scored on a certain list of criteria. And then we'll announce the winners after the first day of the conference, so Saturday night. So the competition is Friday, and then the conference is Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday night, there will be like an awards ceremony, and everybody will find out live. Like, you're not getting told if you're winning yet, and you'll find out live on Saturday night.
Oh my gosh. I am just like imagining the excitement. I'm just excited.
Same here. So what would you say for 2025, like, I'm sure your year is going to look a lot different than it normally does, because now you're going to be probably traveling up to Reno to the PLA headquarters a ton. But what would you say your year is going to consist of in terms of like events or education for yourself?
I've been speaking a lot this year for 2024. Next year, I've been asked to speak a number of times. Lash Boss Summit is one of them. And so I'm already anticipating speaking at a few conferences for 2025. And of course, attending them. I love attending conferences. I get to see everybody and I get to hug everybody live, and like just putting faces to Instagram handles. It's just like one of those things that I really prioritize in my years of going to conferences, because I just want to squeeze everyone and feel the sense of community.
I think I try to go to like every conference that I possibly can. I think that I've met somebody at every single thing that I've ever gone to, and I've never felt like I walked away with or basically every single time that I've gone to something, I've walked away with something that I can apply.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. I feel like I've met someone new at every conference that like I stay connected with for forever more as
Yeah.
well. Like I can almost pinpoint exactly the people that I've met and like where I met them and at what conference I met them at, you know?
Yes. You and
Yeah.
I feel like it was at LashCon 1 year ago, and
Mhm.
we were in the lobby talking to, her name is Vanessa Allen, and she was just sharing things with us, and we were pouring into her, and that was like the first time that I really talked to you as well, though, and I got to know you and your philosophies and your brain a little bit too in that conversation. I don't know if you remember that, but it was, I think, last year.
Absolutely remember it. And I remember we were eating pita bread and hummus.
Yeah.
I totally remember it. Yeah. And we were sitting on chairs that were way too short.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I
I
absolutely remember that name.
I still talk to Vanessa, by the way. She's in San Antonio. It's like Baby Tofu Beauty is her Instagram handle. She's so sweet, and she's somebody that goes to so many conferences too, and just has a lot of dreams and aspirations. And I really respect people that do that sometimes even just go alone to stuff and are just trying to learn and ask questions and pull people aside and just like straight up ask them a question. And I've continued to keep in touch with her because of that. And anyway, so that was her that we were talking to that night.
Yes, yeah, I've seen her after that night, and I remember her. This is so funny, but I remember her plugs, like, in her ears, like, she
Yeah.
has stretched ears like me, and I remember them, and I remember she wore them again at LashCon, so that was that was LashCon 2023 that we met her, and then LashCon 2024, I saw her again, and she was wearing the same plugs, and I was like, "I totally remember I remember those instances, and I think that, like, those moments for me are what I take away the most at conferences of, like, making those actual genuine connections with people that you get to see over and over again, and you get to, you get to keep the conversation going on social media even when you guys live in different places, or even I've met a lot of my local artists, ironically, at conferences in other states more than I ever met them locally, Like,
Yeah.
I never met them locally to me until we were in a different state at a conference, and then we stayed connected. We got to connect more in person locally after the conference, even though we met in a different state, and I'm like, "That's just so funny that I meet my local Lash, friends in a different states." I feel like it's just the ultimate place for connection and relationship building.
I think too, when you meet someone out like that at a conference, you realize how similar you guys are in just terms of mindset and just wanting to grow, Chris Carr and I both live in Austin. We're the same way. We've seen each other way more outside of Austin than in Austin, but we did hang out a few months ago and that was really fun. But anyway, yeah, I totally agree. And whenever I see people that I kind of know around town, I bond with them more at these places because I'm like, hey, we're both trying to do what we can for ourselves. And I think it's admirable. So admirable.
Yes. Yes.
This is kind of not really lash related, but I feel like it is if you think about it, because it's just about people like yourself. But do you have any like routines or staples in your day that you try to do to just kind of optimize your day, your flow, things that make you work just a little bit more creatively or productively? Is there any like tips that you have, even if it's just like wellness stuff or mindset stuff? Is there anything that you do?
I love that question. Yes, I totally do. I have learned oh my gosh, so much just rushed to my brain at one time, and I have to find the words to talk slowly to explain it. Um, I got so excited. Yeah, so I've kind of been on a recent journey about this because just like a little, sneak peek into the last number of years of my life, like I've hit a burnout phase on like almost a clinical burnout level, um, which I learned is a thing that you can actually hit a clinical level of burnout. That I know that that's like a really cliche term nowadays where like everyone's like, avoid burnout, but literally you can hit a level that medically speaking, that burnout is like almost a diagnosis. And I didn't know that was a possibility. But I've really reached that point where like my cognitive function at points has significantly decreased. And I'm like, what in the world? Like it was actually really scaring me. And I realized this level of burnout and how hard I was pushing myself and how much I was expecting and demanding of myself, my body, my nervous system, without learning where my triggers were, what this was even stemming from. This kind of like workaholic, toxic productivity sort of pattern, I would say. And I've learned through going through that it's actually more important to be very self-reflective and learn where your trigger points are and what you need to be doing to fill your cup more often than your output. So like your input is more important than your output. And at times your output is more important than your input. Like for example, in the relationship to social media, constantly consuming social media is just burning you out so much in your creative flow. So learning about myself and learning, where my tendencies are that I'm putting so much, output into, and I'm burning myself out in these it's always the tiniest little things that you probably wouldn't even consider to be burning yourself out. Like, for example, at the end of the night before going to bed, I was scrolling on social media and I was like, I didn't realize that was causing so much anxiety for me by the time that I woke up in the morning, or like it was affecting my sleep so much. So that's a small self-care thing that I started doing is I stopped sleeping with my phone in my room. So I have an Alexa that is my alarm every morning, and my phone, I have this rule for myself and for my partner, that when we're in bed, we don't have our phones. So that's at any point of the day. So like if I take a nap in the middle of the day, I put my phone away. And that was like the tiniest self-care thing that I noticed the biggest difference with. My morning routine is also something that I hold very, very sacred to me. And I am kind of at a point that it's a non-negotiable for me, no matter what the morning looks like. I have to prioritize my morning routine. So I meditate. I take my vitamins every single morning. Like that's the first thing that I do when I wake up. I listen to this sounds so silly, but I listen to like self-development or some sort of like I call it a high vibration like frequency or some sort of feel good concept in the morning. And I don't like to spend my morning on social media with that being the first thing that I'm consuming. So I've noticed such a big difference with the way that I, look at the world when I consume the first thing in the morning. Whoa, I said that weird. Consume first thing in the morning. Something that's really high vibe and something that kind of clears my brain and like sets my eye up to notice the positive things around me rather than, jumping on social media and watching people complain about their clients for the first thing in the morning or, whatever it may be. I notice such a big difference with my consumption and what I'm allowing to feed me in the morning. Gosh, there's so many things. Meditation is just a non-negotiable for me every morning. I have to meditate and I have a whole routine around that. I pray, I listen, there's so many things. I have these herbal tinctures that I take that also are just like the best thing in the world to me. They're better than any pharmaceutical that I've ever taken.
What
So
are
that's
they
also
for?
something. So there's a couple of them. So there's one that's called Deep Stress. This is Wish Garden Herbs. You guys can get it on Amazon. They're seriously better than anything ever. And I try to tell everybody about them and they're like, okay, yeah, it's herbs, Erin. Like, come on. And then they try them because I like give it to them. And they're like, oh my gosh, wait, this is so good. And then they are hooked on it from then on. So it's Wish Garden Herbs is the brand of them. And the first one that I take is Deep Stress. And so it's kind of like an anti-anxiety. And then there's another one called Serious Relaxer. That one's basically a muscle relaxer. It's better than, again, any muscle relaxer that I've ever been prescribed. So that's been really helpful at the end of long lash days or like when I'm trying to rest in the evenings. Genius Juice is another one that's like for cognitive function and focus. I'm very ADHD if we haven't learned that from this podcast. Like I bunny trail really, really often and it's hard for me to keep my focus. So Genius Juice really, really just helps me so much with that. But it doesn't have the psychoactive like stimulant in it. So you don't feel that like Adderall or any of those medications that you're like just like kind of hyphy at times or shaky. Like it depends on the person, but those sort of medications don't work well for me. So this helps me with my cognitive function and my focus, as well as not giving me the downsides to it. I could go on and on. There's so many of them, and every one of them that I've tried has been incredible. There's some for what is it called? Deep lung, and that's been really helpful for like healing my lungs because of like inhaling fumes for many years with lash extensions. It's really messed up my throat and my lungs. They have so many. They have a whole variety of them.
Wow.
So yeah, I
I'm gonna
love
check
those
it out.
tinctures. Yeah.
I'll link that in the show notes too for anyone listening. I'm sold already, so so I'll check that out after this. Well, thank you so much. Actually, let me in that somewhere else. Let me say something else. Let me connect those two things. I think that as I've gotten older, I've realized how much I thrive off of like a routine, or I used to think I was super go with the flow and like spontaneous even, but I've realized the older I've gotten, I actually love a routine and I work best that way. And when I fall out of it, particularly about my sleep, then it really messes with every single aspect of my day. So yeah, I totally love everything you said, and I love asking people this stuff because I'm always like, what else can I add that I'm not already doing? But
No, I agree with you. There's just the tiniest things. I think a lot of people think that self-care, because that's been, commercialized so much, I think that people oversee, they look over, they oversight over, what's the word there?
overlook,
Overlook.
maybe? Yeah.
Yep, that's the word. See, my brain's not working. Um, they overlook just the tiniest things about self-care. Like, for me, self-care is not it can be, but it isn't often the big things. It's not, taking a bath and doing a face mask in the evening. It's not, the self-care that I think we've been, um story told about and what it looks like on social media. For me, self-care looks like, getting enough sleep at night and prioritizing that. It looks like actually doing my laundry and keeping my house and my environment clean. To me, that is like the ultimate form of self-love because it costs me a lot of time and at the same time, it gives me the ultimate level of like productivity and peace around me. So the cost is so worth it to me to do that, you know? So just the tiniest things like, eating a healthy meal or going on a walk or, spending time off of my phone or whatever it may be, it's never something huge that makes the biggest difference for me. It's a
Yeah.
collective of the tiniest things that I do just to make sure that my cup is not overflowing in a negative way.
It's the tiniest things that have the largest payoff. Like,
Yes.
I sometimes have to quiet my brain when I'm starting to, like, get ideas or start thinking about my to-do list at night. I have to tell myself, the most productive thing you could do right now is sleep, and
Yeah.
that sometimes helps. But, yeah, even, like, it's just the non-glamorous stuff, like drinking enough water and everything, that, yeah, it has the biggest payoff in every other way. But yeah, I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we're going to do this again. But I'm very much looking forward to having you at Lash Boss Summit. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything today.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much.